We live in a world where masks are worn daily by friends, colleagues, even loved ones. Beneath the surface, hidden agendas, unspoken fears, and unresolved emotions fester, creating walls between us and the truth. It's no secret that these masks complicate our relationships, distort our perceptions, and leave us vulnerable to manipulation. But what if you could peel back those layers and see people for who they truly are? Imagine the power of understanding someone's intentions without them ever speaking a word. The ability to read the subtle tells that reveal their deepest motivations. In today's video, we're diving into 10 subtle ways to see through those masks instantly. We're talking about the overlooked signals, the hidden cues that, when understood, can change how you interact with everyone in your life. These techniques are more than just tools. They're essential if you want to navigate the complexities of human behavior with clarity and confidence. Stay with me till the end, because each insight brings you closer to mastering this skill. And if you find value in what we discussed today, make sure to subscribe, share your thoughts on one of the key points, and become part of this journey toward deeper understanding. Number 1. Body language never lies. What if someone's body could tell you everything their words don't? A few years ago, a colleague of mine, let's call him Steve, was deep into a new project at work. It was one of those high-profile projects, the kind that could make or break a career. Steve had been putting in long hours, and it was clear he was passionate about his contributions. But then came the tension. Steve started noticing something off with another member of the team, Tom. On the surface, Tom was all smiles, compliments, and affirmations about Steve's work. But Steve, sharp as ever, knew something wasn't quite right. It wasn't in the words Tom was saying, those were carefully crafted. It was in his body language, the subtle cues that betrayed a different story. At first, Steve brushed it off, thinking maybe it was just fatigue playing tricks on him. But as the meetings dragged on, the signs became clearer. Tom's feet often pointed away from Steve during discussions, angled toward the door as if he couldn't wait to leave. His smile, though polite, never reached his eyes, a classic sign that the sincerity was missing. More telling was how Tom would fidget whenever Steve brought up certain parts of the project, shifting in his chair, crossing and uncrossing his arms, as though trying to hide his discomfort. Steve had a strong sense that Tom might be positioning himself to take credit for parts of the project that weren't his. Instead of jumping to conclusions or causing a scene, Steve took a step back and began to observe more closely, something he had learned from years of navigating office politics. The Stoic principle of Apatha, remaining emotionally detached and calm, came into play here. He didn't allow frustration to dictate his actions, but chose to reflect on what was truly happening. One day, after yet another team meeting, Steve approached Tom casually over coffee. Without accusing or confronting, he simply asked open-ended questions about the project. He focused on the facts and didn't let his suspicions show. "How do you see the next phase of the project going?" Steve asked. Tom, initially composed, began to stumble over his words, shifting uncomfortably in his seat. His eyes darted away as he tried to explain his perspective. His voice, usually confident, faltered, and he scratched the back of his neck, a clear sign of anxiety. It was then that Steve knew he was on the right track. Tom's body language was giving away what his words wouldn't. Instead of letting the situation escalate, Steve chose a different path. He invited Tom to collaborate more openly, sharing responsibilities and making sure their contributions were clear and acknowledged by the rest of the team. By doing this, Steve not only protected his own work, but also helped Tom feel less insecure about his role in the project. In the end, the project was a success, and both Steve and Tom received the recognition they deserved. The situation could have easily spiraled into conflict and blame, but Steve's ability to read body language and respond calmly allowed for a resolution that benefited both of them. This approach is deeply rooted in Stoicism. Observe, understand, and act with wisdom rather than emotion. By practicing self-control and focusing on the bigger picture, Steve was able to navigate a potentially damaging situation with clarity and grace. The power of reading body language in everyday life. Steve's story highlights something we often overlook. Body language tells us more than words ever could. While many of us focus on what's being said, The real story is often hidden in the way someone moves, their posture, or the tension in their face. Books like Body Language: How to Read Others' Thoughts by Their Gestures by Julius Fast, The Like Switch by Jack Schafer, and The Definitive Book of Body Language by Alan and Barbara Pease emphasize how much we communicate without speaking. These experts show that subtle gestures, eye movements, and posture can reveal a person's true feelings, even when they're trying to hide them. Fast's work emphasizes the importance of reading small gestures like someone crossing their arms or touching their face, which can signal discomfort or deceit. These cues are invaluable in both personal and professional settings. The Like Switch goes further, explaining how body language can help you influence and win people over by creating rapport, something that's often critical in negotiations and collaboration. Alan and Barbara Pease, in The Definitive Book of Body Language, stress the importance of congruence. If someone's words don't match their body language, you're better off trusting the body. For example, if someone is saying they agree with you but their arms are crossed and their body is angled away, they're likely not as invested as they claim to be. These mismatches are the telltale signs of hidden feelings or unspoken intentions. Stoic lessons for dealing with deception. So how does this tie into Stoicism? The Stoics teach us to observe the world around us with objectivity, without letting our emotions cloud our judgment. When you're in a situation where someone's words don't match their actions, or in this case, their body language, it's essential not to react impulsively. Marcus Aurelius wrote about the importance of understanding human nature, observing without judgment, and acting with intention. When you notice that someone's body language isn't lining up with their words, here are some Stoic-inspired steps to take. 1. Pause before reacting. Resist the urge to immediately confront or accuse. Take a moment to reflect on what you're seeing and how you should respond. This aligns with the Stoic principle of ataraxia, or maintaining inner peace. Gather more information. Before making assumptions, gather more evidence. Just as Steve did in the story, ask open-ended questions that can lead the person to reveal more about their intentions. Often people will expose themselves without needing to be confronted. 3. Focus on what you can control. You can't control how others act, but you can control how you respond. If someone's body language reveals something off, approach them calmly and with empathy, focusing on the bigger picture rather than immediate emotions. 4. Stay objective. Stoicism teaches us to view situations from a higher perspective. Rather than taking things personally or letting emotions drive your actions, assess the situation logically and decide the best course of action for everyone involved. By blending the insights from body language with Stoic philosophy, you equip yourself with the tools to handle difficult situations with grace. Reading people is about understanding their true intentions, but how you respond is where Stoic wisdom comes into play. In the end, it's not just about what you see, it's about how you choose to act. Number 2, uncover truth with Tell Me More. How often do we miss the truth because we're too busy preparing our next argument instead of listening? The Stoics often reminded us of the power of silence, and it's in that space between words that we find real understanding. A few years ago, I watched this unfold between two friends of mine, Jake and Ben, at a neighborhood barbecue. The setting was casual laughter, drinks, and the usual banter about life and work. Jake was in the middle of explaining a rough situation at his job. He had been passed over for a promotion, and Ben, always the opinionated one, was eager to jump in and offer his perspective. But then something interesting happened. Instead of giving advice, Ben leaned back, nodded slightly, and said, "Tell me more." It was subtle, just 3 little words, but the effect was profound. Jake, who had been defensive at first, suddenly relaxed. What started as a complaint about workplace politics evolved into a deeper conversation about his childhood, about the pressure he felt growing up, constantly needing to prove himself. He shared stories that no one had ever heard before. In that moment, Ben had unknowingly tapped into one of the greatest tools for uncovering truth, simply asking for more and letting someone's defenses drop naturally. The beauty of Tell Me More lies in its simplicity. When you use it, you're not pushing your agenda, you're not trying to fix the situation, you're creating a space for the other person to feel heard. And once they feel heard, they begin to open up, just like pulling a thread from a tightly wound knot. There's a Stoic principle at play here, the idea of sympathia, or interconnectedness. Marcus Aurelius believed that we are all part of a larger whole, bound together by our shared humanity. By allowing someone the space to explain themselves without interruption, you tap into this shared connection. You're not just listening to respond, you're listening to understand. And that understanding often leads to truths that were hidden just beneath the surface. Think of it like fishing in a calm lake. If you splash around, trying to catch something quickly, you'll scare away the fish. But if you're still, patient, and quiet, eventually the truth like a fish will come to you. Back to the barbecue by the end of the night, Jake had gone from venting about his frustrations to realizing something deeper about himself. It wasn't the lack of promotion that was really bothering him, it was the fear of being overlooked, a fear that had haunted him for years. Then, simply by saying, "Tell me more," had helped him unlock something that no piece of advice could have ever achieved. This is where Stoicism becomes practical. In Meditations, Marcus Aurelius talks about the power of observation without judgment. In a way, "Tell me more" embodies this principle. You aren't making assumptions, you aren't jumping to conclusions, you're simply observing, listening carefully, and allowing the other person to unfold their story on their terms. It's an act of empathy, but without attachment to the outcome. You're not trying to control or steer the conversation, you're just providing the space for the other person to reveal what's truly on their mind. So how can you apply this in your own life? The next time you're in a conversation, whether it's with a colleague, a friend, or even a family member, resist the urge to interrupt or offer your solution right away. Instead, try saying, "Tell me more." You'll be surprised at how much people are willing to share when they feel truly heard. If you're in a work meeting and a colleague seems frustrated, rather than jumping in with suggestions or challenges, simply ask them to elaborate. "Tell me more" invites them to explore their own thoughts more deeply, often leading to a clearer understanding of the issue at hand. In personal relationships, it can create moments of vulnerability that deepen trust and connection. A spouse venting about a long day at work may start by talking about the frustrations with a boss. But "tell me more" might reveal underlying anxieties about self-worth or feeling overwhelmed by responsibilities at home. The truth is, we often wear masks at work, with friends, even with our families. We hide our insecurities behind quick responses, masking our vulnerabilities with rehearsed lines. But "tell me more" is the key that unlocks those masks. It's the gentle nudge that encourages someone to go beyond the surface and reveal what's really going on. It's a simple phrase, but it's like opening a door to an entirely new conversation. In Stoicism, the idea of apatheia, freedom from passion, is crucial. By asking "tell me more," you remain emotionally detached from the outcome, giving the other person the freedom to express themselves without feeling judged or cornered. You become the observer, the listener, and in doing so, you give them a rare gift, the opportunity to feel understood. So next time, instead of offering advice or jumping to conclusions, just say those 3 words. Because sometimes uncovering the truth is less about what you say and more about what you allow the other person to reveal. Number 3, observe how they treat others. How do you truly measure someone's character? Watch how they treat the people who can't do anything for them. I remember a Saturday morning at a bustling coffee shop. I was there to meet up with an old colleague, Mark, someone who had always been charming in the office. He was known for being charismatic, always quick with a joke, and able to smooth over any situation with ease. But something about Mark never quite sat right with me. It wasn't anything he said directly. It was how he treated others when he thought no one important was watching. That day, it became crystal clear. As we sat down, the barista came over to take our order. Mark's tone shifted instantly. His easygoing demeanor hardened, and he spoke to her in a curt, dismissive way, barely looking up from his phone. He barked his order like he was in charge of the world. That not a guest in a cafe. And it didn't stop there. He barely acknowledged her presence throughout the entire interaction, treating her as if she was invisible. The change was subtle, but unmistakable. This was the real Mark. Not the guy cracking jokes with his colleagues or winning over clients in meetings. The truth wasn't in how he treated people who could advance his career or improve his standing. It was in how he treated those he deemed beneath him. That's when I realized, if you want to know who someone truly is, observe how they treat the people society often overlooks. The waiters, the janitors, the cashiers. It's easy to be kind when you're looking for something in return. It's much harder when there's nothing to gain. And this is where Stoicism comes in. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." In other words, don't let your treatment of others depend on their status or what they can do for you. It's in how you consistently show up with integrity, regardless of who's watching or what you stand to gain, that your true character is revealed. In that moment, watching Mark interact with the barista, I was reminded of that Stoic principle. True strength of character is not found in grand gestures or in how we treat our bosses, but in how we handle everyday interactions, particularly with those who hold no power over us. What happened next? I finished my coffee, listened politely to Mark's stories about work, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was seeing the real version of him for the first time. When we parted ways, I knew I didn't want to keep him as a close connection in my life. His behavior wasn't just a one-off. It was a glimpse into his values or lack thereof. In our own lives, we're constantly given the opportunity to observe people this way. Whether at work, at home, or in a social setting, the way someone treats others is a mirror into their true self. The next time you find yourself in a group, take a step back and pay attention to the interactions that seem the most insignificant, the moments where no one else is looking. How does the person you're with treat the people around them when there's no benefit in being kind? Do they show empathy and respect, or do they take advantage of those moments to assert dominance or indifference? Here's a practical takeaway you can apply starting today. The next time you're at a restaurant, cafe, or even running errands, pay close attention to how the people around you interact with those in service roles. Notice the way they speak to waitstaff, cashiers, or anyone working behind the scenes. This will tell you more about their character than any conversation you'll have over the course of a lunch or a meeting. And then reflect on your own behavior. How do you interact with those who cannot advance your status or offer you any direct benefit? Stoicism asks us to act with virtue, not just when it's easy, but when it's difficult or inconvenient. It's like the roots of a tree, often hidden beneath the surface, but the real foundation of everything above. How we treat those who seem insignificant to our lives speaks volumes about our true nature. Words can be polished, smiles can be practiced, but actions in these small moments, those are honest. The Stoic approach, then, is to always act with integrity, not because of who is watching or what we might gain, but because it is the right thing to do. We may not always see the direct results of this kind of behavior, but like a steady wind shaping a mountain, consistency in how we treat others will carve out our character over time. And in the end, that's what truly matters. Number 4. Sudden changes in tone signal lies or hesitation. Have you ever found yourself in a conversation where something just didn't feel right? The words being said were fine, but there was something off about the way they were delivered. You couldn't put your finger on it, but you sensed a shift. Imagine this scenario. You're sitting in a meeting at work, and a colleague is explaining why the project they're responsible for is going to be delayed. At first, everything seems normal. They're speaking confidently, giving logical reasons about why things are taking longer than expected. But then, when you ask them directly about a key issue, one that's been a real concern for the team, you notice something changes. Suddenly, their tone of voice drops slightly. It becomes softer, less assured. Their words might still be calm, but their voice is telling you a different story. They might even start talking more slowly or pausing between sentences, as if they're carefully choosing every word. This sudden change in tone is subtle, but it's significant. It's like when the sky shifts before a storm, something is brewing beneath the surface. They're trying to hide their uncertainty or discomfort, but their voice is betraying them. At that moment, you know, whatever they're saying isn't the full truth. There's hesitation, maybe even deception, lurking behind their carefully chosen words. This is where your ability to read the situation becomes crucial. Just like a Stoic, you need to practice observation without judgment. The Stoics taught us to stay calm, remain objective, and avoid reacting impulsively. Instead of immediately confronting your colleague or calling them out on the spot, step back mentally and gather more information. Ask yourself, why did their tone change? What might they be hiding? Then, rather than accusing them directly, shift the conversation. Ask them open-ended questions like, "Can you explain a bit more about that?" Or "I'd love to hear more details on how you plan to solve this issue." By doing this, you're giving them the space to reveal the truth without feeling threatened. You're not reacting emotionally or accusing them of anything. You're simply letting the conversation unfold. And often, when someone feels safe enough to talk, they'll begin to let their guard down. Their initial hesitation, signaled by that shift in tone, was a clue, and now you're following it to get to the real story. This kind of careful listening and observation aligns with the Stoic principle of phronesis, or practical wisdom. Marcus Aurelius often spoke about the importance of seeing things clearly and without emotion. In this case, your job is to recognize that the change in tone is not something to ignore. It's a subtle but crucial signal that something deeper is going on, and it's your role to investigate it with patience and understanding. So how do you apply this in your daily life? The next time you're in a conversation, whether it's at work, with a friend, or even in a negotiation, pay attention to any sudden shifts in tone. If someone who's normally upbeat and confident suddenly becomes quieter, or if their voice falters at a crucial moment, don't brush it off. That's your cue to dig deeper, but do so with care. Ask questions, listen more, and allow the truth to come out naturally. Think of these tone shifts like ripples in a calm pond. The words might seem smooth on the surface, but those subtle ripples and the changes in tone are signaling something is happening underneath. And if you pay attention, you can navigate the conversation toward clarity, just like a sailor adjusting their sails to the changing winds. This doesn't just apply to work settings either. In personal relationships, tone is often the first clue that something is wrong. Maybe your partner says everything is fine, but their tone is clipped, or their voice lacks the warmth it usually has. In moments like these, don't react immediately. Instead, stay calm, observe the change, and ask them what's really going on. By staying present and not letting emotion cloud your judgment, you can guide the conversation in a way that brings out the truth without causing conflict. In the end, just as Marcus Aurelius said, the best way to live is to act in harmony with nature. Part of that harmony comes from understanding the nature of people, their signals, their tone, and the deeper meaning behind what they say. By recognizing sudden changes in tone and responding with stoic calm, you'll find that the truth often reveals itself without the need for confrontation. You become, in essence, a quiet observer, uncovering the truth that lies just beneath the surface. Number 5. True character in unobserved moments. How do you know someone's true nature? The Stoics would say, look not at what they do when they are seen, but how they act when no one is watching. It's in the unobserved moments that a person's character is revealed, stripped of the masks they wear for public approval. You've likely seen the viral videos, the ones that spark outrage and disbelief. A public figure or seemingly kind individual caught in a hidden camera footage, mistreating an animal or speaking harshly to a child. Out in the open, they are composed, polite, and often admired for their charm. But behind closed doors, when they believe no one is watching, the truth leaks out. It's jarring to witness the disconnect between the person they present to the world and the one they truly are. This sudden shift in how we perceive them makes us question not only their integrity, but our ability to read people at all. This is where Stoicism offers us a valuable perspective. Marcus Aurelius wrote extensively about the importance of living in accordance with virtue, not for recognition, but because it is simply the right way to live. He stressed that we should act with integrity whether we're being observed or not, because true character isn't built on external validation. It's formed in the choices we make when no one else is around. If your actions shift dramatically based on whether people are watching, it's not integrity, it's performance. Now imagine this. You're at a family gathering, and everyone is on their best behavior, treating each other with kindness. But after the dinner is over and everyone has left, you overhear a conversation where a close family member speaks cruelly about another relative. They've let their guard down, believing no one else is around to hear them. In that unguarded moment, their true feelings, hidden behind polite smiles during the meal, come to light. It's a stark reminder that people often wear masks in public, presenting a version of themselves that doesn't always align with who they are in private. This experience isn't unique. Many of us have witnessed these moments where someone's behavior shifts when they think they are not being watched. Maybe it was at work, where a colleague who is always cooperative and respectful with the boss becomes dismissive or condescending towards subordinates when leadership is absent. Or maybe it was with a friend who is generous and kind in front of others, but indifferent and uncaring when there's no audience to witness their actions. These are the moments that reveal the true core of a person's character. So, what can we do when faced with these unobserved moments of truth? The Stoics would tell us not to judge harshly, but to observe objectively and act wisely. Seneca often wrote about the importance of reflecting on our own actions rather than focusing on the failings of others. It's easy to criticize, but the real lesson here is how we respond to these moments. We can choose to distance ourselves from those who act without integrity, but more importantly, we can use these observations as a reminder to live our own lives with consistency and honesty. The practical takeaway here is clear. Pay attention to how people treat those who can do nothing for them, or when there's no reward for kindness. But just as importantly, reflect on your own behavior. Do you act with the same level of respect, kindness, and patience when no one is around? When you're not in front of an audience or seeking approval, are your actions still aligned with your values? It's a simple test, but one that speaks volumes about who we truly are. The Stoic approach to life reminds us that virtue is not something we display when convenient. It's a constant practice, one that requires self-reflection and honesty in every situation. By observing others in their unguarded moments, we learn much about them, but by observing ourselves, we gain even deeper insight into the kind of person we are striving to become. In the end, our true character is like the foundation of a building hidden from view but supporting everything above. And it's in those unobserved moments that we either reinforce or weaken that foundation. Choose integrity, whether you are being watched or not, because it's not the applause of others that defines you, but the quiet actions you take when no one is there to see. Number 6. Emotional reactions reveal true values. Why do certain situations evoke strong emotions while others pass without notice? The answer lies in the fact that emotions are powerful indicators of our values. Stoicism teaches us that reactions, whether positive or negative, are not just responses to external stimuli, but reflections of what truly matters to us. When someone reacts strongly to an event, it's because their emotional response is tied to something they hold dear. In Stoicism, observing emotions without attachment is key. Marcus Aurelius, in Meditations, reminds us to view events as they are, not as our emotions make them appear. This principle helps us see that when someone's anger flares or they light up with excitement, their reaction is revealing a priority or value that is core to their identity. Our task as Stoics is to recognize these cues and understand the deeper motivations behind them. Emotions often act as signposts, pointing to our underlying beliefs and priorities. Whether it's frustration over a missed deadline or joy over a small recognition, these reactions are not random. They are grounded in values we might not even consciously acknowledge. But, as Stoicism advises, it's not just about observing emotions in others. We must also turn inward, asking ourselves why we react the way we do. Are we upset because a principle we value is at stake? Or is our ego in control? Are we driven by fear, pride, or insecurity, or by a genuine desire to uphold our values? By practicing Apatha, emotional detachment, we gain the clarity to separate fleeting emotional impulses from true values. This self-awareness allows us to act in alignment with what truly matters. The Stoics encourage us to examine our emotions as clues, guiding us towards a life of purpose and consistency. Whether interacting with others or reflecting on ourselves, The key is to recognize that emotional reactions are not problems to be fixed, but messages to be understood. The takeaway? Observe both your emotions and those of others carefully. When strong emotions arise, reflect on the deeper values they signal. This practice not only sharpens your understanding of others, but also helps you align your own actions with your core values. When you master this skill, you'll navigate life with more wisdom, acting not out of impulse, but from a place of intention and integrity. Number 7. The role of tone and pacing in speech. Speech is a mirror of the soul. As a man speaks, so is he. Publius Cyrus. Tone and pacing in speech are often more revealing than the words themselves. The Stoics believe that wisdom lies not only in what is said, but in how it is communicated. The way someone modulates their tone, whether it's calm or sharp, rushed or deliberate, can tell you more about their true intentions and emotional state than the content of their words. From a Stoic perspective, tone and pacing are reflections of inner clarity. When we are aligned with our principles, our speech follows suit. It's measured, calm, and purposeful. If someone's tone fluctuates wildly or their speech accelerates, it's often a signal of inner turmoil, insecurity, or even deceit. As Marcus Aurelius teaches in Meditations, mastering oneself means speaking with intention and avoiding impulsive reactions that cloud the message. Joe Navarro, in Dangerous Personalities, highlights that certain types of people, especially those with negative traits like narcissism or manipulation, often betray themselves through tone and speech patterns. Navarro explains that individuals who are deceitful or manipulative tend to exhibit sudden shifts in tone, becoming defensive, overly sweet, or evasive. This isn't limited to criminals, but also applies to those with harmful personal traits. For instance, someone who talks excessively fast may be trying to overwhelm or mislead you, while someone whose tone fluctuates dramatically might be hiding something or trying to control the narrative. These subtle cues in speech are invaluable for identifying when someone's words don't align with their intent. The next time you engage with someone who raises your suspicions, pay attention not just to what they say, but how they say it. Their tone may soften when they're trying to manipulate or harden when they feel cornered. Recognizing these shifts allows you to see through the masks people wear. So how can you apply this? The next time you're in a conversation, especially a difficult one, pay close attention to how the other person is speaking. Are they rushing through their words or pausing deliberately? Does their tone shift when certain topics are brought up? This isn't about catching someone out. It's about gaining deeper insight into the unspoken elements of communication. For yourself, practice mindful speech. Slow down when emotions rise, let your tone match your intent, and ensure that your pacing reflects thoughtful consideration. In doing so, your speech becomes like a steady river, calm, controlled, and flowing with purpose. By applying Stoic principles and understanding the insights from experts like Navarro, you can sharpen your ability to read between the lines of human communication. Tone and pacing, though subtle, are often the clearest windows into a person's true nature. Number 8. How they react to compliments and criticism. Praise makes good men better and bad men worse. Thomas Fuller. How someone reacts to compliments and criticism tells you more about their character than the words they say. In Stoicism, the idea of remaining indifferent to external validation or critique, whether it's praise or condemnation, is central to emotional resilience. Epictetus reminds us that we cannot control the opinions of others, only how we choose to respond. A person's reaction to these moments often reveals their insecurities, pride, or humility. Those who are truly secure in themselves take compliments with grace, without letting their ego inflate. They recognize praise as fleeting, much like the Stoic belief that external events are beyond our control. Conversely, how they handle criticism speaks volumes. Do they become defensive, or do they see it as an opportunity to grow? The Stoics teach that feedback, even when uncomfortable, can be a tool for self-improvement if approached with the right mindset. In your own life, practice this awareness. When someone compliments you, take a moment to appreciate it without becoming overly attached to the validation. When criticized, view it through the lens of Stoicism, separate emotion from fact, and assess whether there's a lesson to be learned. These moments are like mirrors, reflecting back to us who we really are. By mastering how you respond to both praise and criticism, you take a major step toward emotional mastery. Just like a well-rooted tree remains steady through winds, you can remain unshaken by both the praise and judgments of others. Number 9. Consistency between words and actions. Imagine this. You have a friend who's always talking about the importance of punctuality. They make it a point to emphasize how much they value being on time and how it shows respect for others. But over the past few weeks, you've noticed something. Despite their words, they're consistently late. Whether it's meeting up for coffee or joining a work project, their actions don't line up with their promises. This disconnect between words and actions sends a clear message, even if unintended. The Stoics teach us that integrity is about acting in accordance with your values, not merely talking about them. If you say you believe in something, it's not enough to proclaim it, you have to live it. Inconsistent behavior, like being late despite claiming punctuality is important, erodes trust and reveals that the person may not be as committed to their values as they say. Stoicism reminds us that virtue is found in action, not in words, and this principle applies to our own lives as well. Look inward. Are there areas where your actions aren't aligned with your stated values? Perhaps you've told yourself you'll start a healthy routine, but you keep making excuses. Or maybe you've promised to be more present with loved ones, but distractions keep pulling you away. Consistency between what you say and what you do is the foundation of trust and reliability, both with others and with yourself. The practical takeaway here is simple. Start small. If you commit to something, follow through. Don't make promises lightly, and ensure your actions reflect what you truly believe. Over time, this consistency will build not only your integrity, but also your sense of self-worth, aligning your life with the principles you hold dear. Think of it like building a wall. Every action, big or small, is a brick. If your actions and words are inconsistent, the wall will crumble. But if they're aligned, you'll create something strong and lasting. Number 10. Testing boundaries subtly. The limits of the soul are unknown. One cannot uncover them. Heraclitus. Subtly testing boundaries is one of the most powerful ways to understand someone's character and intentions. People often reveal who they are not when things are easy, but when their limits are gently pushed. In Stoicism, we learn that self-mastery involves understanding our reactions to external pressures and knowing how to handle them calmly. By observing how others respond when their boundaries are tested, we can see through the masks they wear. This concept isn't about manipulation, but about understanding. A small subtle push, a delayed response, a challenging question, or an unexpected request can reveal how flexible or rigid someone's values truly are. Stoics emphasize the importance of resilience and adaptability, and through these subtle tests, you can observe whether someone remains calm and centered or becomes defensive and reactive. In your own life, consider how you react when someone tests your boundaries. Are you patient, or do you respond with frustration? Pay attention to those moments, as they reflect your level of emotional control. As you engage with others, you can also use this technique to better understand their true nature without forcing conflict. Ask for something small outside the norm, observe their reaction, and see whether they remain composed or become agitated. Think of these moments like a magnifying glass, highlighting what might otherwise remain hidden. Through subtle boundary testing, you gain deeper insight into how people really think and behave under pressure, giving you the clarity to navigate relationships with wisdom and confidence. The ability to see through people's masks and understand their true nature is a powerful tool for building better relationships and navigating life with clarity. By applying these subtle techniques, you'll gain deeper insight into the people around you and ultimately yourself. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell, like and share this video with your friends and family. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.